So something very interesting is going on behind the scenes at Nintendo right now, some of which being announced directly to your face, such as the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest, which we will be covering in detail in this video. And that already sounds weird to hear Nintendo advertising that they're going to be having a playtest session tied to Nintendo Switch Online. That's not something they're historically known for doing, and they're specifically claiming that it has a new feature, and that's what they are testing for. Obviously, the Switch 2 rumors with this are running wild, but we don't necessarily know that it's tied to Switch 2. It could just be a feature that will be added in the near future for NSO, and we know Nintendo Switch Online will be rolling forward, so hypothetically, this could be something that's also supported on Switch 2. But then you may remember just a few days back, we saw a very surprising new system firmware update go live with 19.0.0, and while Nintendo's direct comments around this was for general system stability and improvements, as they always say, data miners have now uncovered some interesting details within this new system firmware, some of them just being on the surface, like they rebuild every component of the OS, and that happens anytime they go to a full new number, and other people online, such as Necro Felipe, directly claiming that a lot of the under the hood changes for this 19.0.0 update do tie into Switch 2 and some key system functionality when it comes to online play. So the timing around these two different things popping up online could be correlated, they could not, but that's what we're going to try to uncover in today's video and get maybe a little bit of a loose idea of what Nintendo might be working on behind the scenes here, and just when we might find out about it officially from themselves. So we'll get on the same page with all of that. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we have to first kick it off by talking about this Nintendo Switch Online Playtest, because as I mentioned, very out of character for Nintendo, not something we've historically seen them do for any kind of Nintendo Switch Online feature in the past, and they are specifically now claiming that they will be playtesting a new feature with a select number of players ahead of its live date, and we don't even know when it will go live, but we do know the details around this playtest and when it will take place and how many players will be involved with it, as you can see this following post first over from Nintendo of America's Twitter, which reads, "We will be performing a test related to a new feature for Nintendo Switch Online on Nintendo Switch starting 8 a.m. Pacific time on October 10th. Existing Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members will be able to apply to participate on a first come, first served basis." Then on a more detailed webpage that Nintendo posted up, you can see about the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest program. "We will perform a test called Nintendo Switch Online Playtest Program related to a new feature for the Nintendo Switch Online service offered for the Nintendo Switch system. We will recruit people to participate in this test from customers who have an active Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack membership. Customers will need to download exclusive software to their own Nintendo Switch system in order to participate. Please review the application guidelines below before applying." Now, in case you want to apply for this, just a couple things you need to know. Your Nintendo Online account, you have to be over 18 years of age. You have to have already been a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member. That had to have been done as of yesterday, so you can't just sign up for it now. Your Nintendo account must be registered in one of the following countries: Japan, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, or Spain. They point out to apply using the application link on the bottom of the page of the website we are looking at, and then participants from Japan will be chosen via a raffle if there are many Japanese applicants, and participants from outside of Japan will be chosen on a first come, first served basis. Then you have this very important number that this playtest is expected to accept as many as 10,000 participants. That's actually not a lot at all in comparison to how many expansion pack members there are out there. So this maybe it's something that I can get into. I definitely will be trying, but not necessarily guaranteed. And by the time you're seeing this video, the enrollment time is happening right around now. So I will have this website linked in my description down below under the sources section if you want to try to go apply. It might be too late if you didn't see this video right when it went live, but I will be trying to get into this playtest myself. I am filming the day before, so they do have a recruitment period all the way from the 10th to the 15th. I don't think you're going to have that amount of time to get in if this is only up to 10,000 players. And then this is interesting. So the actual playtest period will be from October 23rd, 2024, all the way to November 5th, 2024. Now, in terms of what this feature could actually be, there's a few different interesting theories floating around online, but nothing that I would consider to be concrete 100%. Like, that's what this is. I don't think it's been uncovered yet. What Nintendo's playtesting interesting here with this NSO feature, but a couple ideas. Obviously, people want it to be something like GameCube, and they just have to test that out for some reason ahead of time, because you can make an argument that GameCube file sizes for their games are significantly larger than any of the consoles we have on NSO right now. And whereas right now you can just download one NSO application for, say, the N64 and have all of the games download with that one application, if you have something like 10 to 15, even upwards of 20 Nintendo GameCube games, well, you're probably not going to be able just to simply download that all within one application, unless they figured out some great compression technology that maybe will allow them to do that on next gen hardware. I'm not leaning in the direction of this being GameCube though. There's the possibility that because it's larger file sizes, maybe this is tied to them streaming GameCube games and they need to test that out. That's not something I want to see, by the way. If you play like any PS3 games through Sony and what used to be called PlayStation Now, which is now just their premium tier, where you have access to a bunch of PS3 games in the library, streaming still to this day, even though it works a lot better than it once did, it's not the ideal way to play games ever, because there is just noticeable input lag from time to time. And so I'm very hopeful, if we're getting GameCube to NSO, that it's not like, hey, here's GameCube, but also you have to stream these games. They're not going to be natively on your internal storage. That would be a big issue for me, but that's also not what I think this is. We obviously know Nintendo's approaching the end of the Switch's life cycle, and this would be a very late time in the current Switch's life cycle to bring any kind of really new notable feature to NSO. So maybe this is something that is truly gearing up how the Nintendo Switch would support something like crossplay with online features with their next gen hardware. And it might just seem like we're playing some kind of playtest new group of NSO games that maybe are brand new and they're focused around online play, but in the background we're actually hooking up to Nintendo's servers that are testing out crossplay functionality with Nintendo Switch 2 through those servers in the back end. Like maybe something's going on like that, where Nintendo's being sneaky and not telling us that this is a playtest for crossplay functionality, but that is really what's going on with their next gen hardware. But while you could brand that as a feature, it doesn't as much fit that bill in my opinion. But yeah, there could be some kind of sneaky network test going on here, where they're trying to figure out the ins and outs of how Switch 1 hardware following this new 19.0.0 update will work with their online service with their future hardware. If you want to play Smash Bros via backwards compatibility on your Switch 2, but you clearly need that to work with all the existing Switch 1s out there, there is some kind of realm of possibility that that's what we're looking at here. But again, not a concrete theory. Maybe they're just adding trophies and achievement systems across the board to NSO, and that's some kind of test for this. I don't think that they would have to necessarily test a feature like that online though, and it doesn't make as much sense to me for them to have to do this 10,000 plus player beta test essentially for trophies and achievements to go live. That seems like something that wouldn't require an online playtest, but it would be considered a new feature, or something that is out of character for Nintendo but could be a late lifecycle addition to Nintendo Switch, is something like being able to be in a party room with friends, essentially, rather than having to invite people to games individually or back out all the way to the beginning of online menus. Something that would be really notable and a big quality of life enhancement is if you could be in a party with your friends all the way through the Nintendo Switch's home screen, and you get into a game and then everybody can just join into your game seamlessly. And obviously it would be a huge feature upgrade if they also included voice chat along with that party feature, but that again seems like a stretch for the current Nintendo Switch hardware. It's not that it's not possible, but why would we be getting that 7.5 years into the current console generation just at the tail end, unless if that is a feature that's technically being built in for Switch 2 and they need to test it out in a standalone contained application for Switch 1, and that's what we're a part of. Like, all of this stuff are just ideas, but I did want to point out this interesting find that maybe leads some credence to the idea that it's somehow tied to streaming games, where you do have Andy Robinson tweeting out this NSO online program announcement for their article, and then somebody responding basically saying what they found in the source code for the page, and they said, found this line of text in the page source. We recommend enjoying this playtest using TV mode and a wired internet connection. Recommending wired makes me think bandwidth/latency is important, which then makes me wonder if we might get a game streaming service. Now, while I would say yes, that in theory makes sense, it's also very possible that Nintendo is just including the recommendation to have a wired connection because they really want the most reliable connection for as many players as possible that are going to be part of this playtest, because they are going to be testing stuff on their end, stress testing their servers, different things like that. They want you to have the most reliable connection for the best experience possible. It doesn't necessarily prove that this is tied to some kind of game streaming service, but again, it is plausible that some of the larger games in the later life cycle of Nintendo's back catalog that you might need to turn to a game streaming service to keep the file sizes of the applications reasonable. But I'm really hoping and also not thinking that that's what this is. Now, to kind of tie it into how, if at all, this relates to the 19.0.0 system firmware upgrade we saw recently, I want to first highlight Oatmeal Dome's post around this, because they definitely outlined just kind of like how these could be standard changes for a big number change, but it's not really clear that any of the revisions are for sure tied to something like new features. But you can see his post in thread, which reads, 19.0.0 is now out. Pretty much every system component was updated. This is normal for major updates as the entire OS is rebuilt with a newer SDK version. It'll probably take a bit for those smarter than me to investigate the exact changes. I suspect that major versions like these are tied to new SDK releases internally. The first number going up isn't meant to indicate that there's big changes for normal people, but rather that there might be changes that matter for game devs, i.e. Nintendo is following SEMVer. And no, changes that matter for game devs doesn't necessarily mean Switch 2. Could be something simple like Nintendo changed the name of something, so now developers need to update their game code accordingly if they want to use the newer SDK. However, Necrophilippe first had this to say about the 19.0 update, where he says the number of new instructions present in Nintendo Switch firmware 19 is, to say the least, interesting. I should cover them when data mining gets more details over at Switchbrew, but I can tell you that the operating system is being shaped to have several new features on Switch 2. Then his most recent post on this reads, based on what I've seen in the Switchbrew firmware 19, I expect interesting changes involving the friend system, home, storage, and even the way the operating system of Nintendo's new hardware should handle simultaneous content downloads. So that last post, if accurate, definitely gives some promise to the idea that Nintendo might be really looking at the fundamentals of how our friend systems work, because we know friend codes are archaic and they're not something that we want to mess with. And obviously, if you had a better system for that, by the time your next gen hardware launched, that would be a good thing. And if you're getting some of the behind the scenes work out of the way for that big change, you might have to update some stuff with how the OS interacts with the online portion of the service right now on the current console. Then we have this playtest coming up, and you have the idea that how Nintendo is fundamentally doing things with the friend system, the home screen, the storage, and even citing things like simultaneous content downloads. Like, apparently a lot of that stuff is being reworked under the hood, and this is all happening right in front of our eyes, where the timeline and expectations for the potential of a Switch 2 reveal are at an all-time high. And if you tie this in at all, if you want to get speculative on what dates are more likely now that Nintendo could reveal the console, and maybe we would learn something about this online feature ahead of when the playtest actually goes live. Well, the playtest starts on the 23rd, and does that mean Nintendo would have to reveal something to Switch 2 before the 23rd? No, it doesn't, and that's not something you should set your expectations on, that we will for sure see a reveal of the console before that date. But it is plausible to think that because they're running this playtest, if this is a meaningful big feature upgrade for NSO, and maybe it will be in the first look trailer of the next gen hardware, and we see that on something like Tuesday the 22nd, well, then it would be fine for all the playtesters to know about this feature walking into the playtest, whereas Nintendo's not doing NDAs for 10,000 plus people. Like, whatever this feature is going to be well known as soon as that 23rd date is here. And maybe if it is tied to Switch 2 or Switch 2 NSO features at all, Nintendo sneakily does that behind the scenes, gets the data that they need on their end, but doesn't necessarily tell us end users what the finalized feature on Switch 2 will actually be for NSO. So there was tons to unpack in today's video. I want to hear from you guys at this point. What do you make of all of this? Do you think that the NSO playtest is interesting and you think it's tied to some kind of notable new feature? Do you think it's just Nintendo maybe upgrading their netcode on the back end and calling this a feature just really isn't the accurate description at the end of the day? Or do you think this is bigger than many of us are thinking, and it is something like GameCube, party chat, trophy system? Like, what do you personally believe it is? And do you think it ties in at all to the 19.0.0 firmware upgrade we recently saw hit the Nintendo Switch? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.